boys and girls. This is me with my readers on because I'm going to try to read from this book. See, I highlighted it because this is a part that's important to me, and it's an old habit from when I was a Christian. You highlight the things that you want to read, and you don't highlight the things that they don't want you to read. Anyway, this is just, there's tons of places you can go to look and read about Josephus and why he's widely considered to be his work, his little paragraph that's, just conveniently right in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff is considered by most to be a forgery of the church. But this I just thought it would be easier rather than go to some website where you've got, there's tons of those too. You can go to websites. But this is my book, Losing Faith in Faith by Dan Barker. In fact, this is the first book that I read when I was starting to doubt. And it's really what toppled my faith. So, okay, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to read a big chunk. Yes, okay. This is about Josephus. Antiquities was written sometime around the year 90 AD. It begins, "In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth," and arduously parallels the Old Testament up to the time when Josephus is able to add equally arduous historical details of Jewish life during the early Roman period. In Book 18, Chapter 3, this paragraph is encountered. Winston's translation. "Now, there was about this time Jesus, a wise man, if it be lawful to call him a man, for he was a doer of wonderful works, a teacher of such men as received the truth with pleasure. He drew over to him both many of the Jews and many of the Gentiles. He was the Christ. And when Pilate, at the suggestion of the principal men amongst us, had condemned him to the cross, those that loved him at the first did not forsake him. For he appeared to them alive again the third day, as the divine prophets had foretold. These and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him and the tribe of Christians, so named from him, are not extinct at this day." This truly appears to give historical confirmation for the existence of Jesus, but is it authentic? Most scholars, including most fundamentalist scholars, admit that at least some parts of this paragraph cannot be authentic. Many are convinced that the entire paragraph is a forgery, an interpolation inserted by Christians at a later time. You think? There are many reasons for this. The paragraph is absent from early copies of the works of Josephus. For example, it does not appear in Origen's 2nd century version of Josephus, contained in Origen Contra Celsum, where Origen fiercely defended Christianity against the heretical views of Celsum. God, sorry, this is why I'm not a scholar and I'll never try to be one. Celsum, where Origen Origen quoted freely from Josephus to prove his points, but never once used this paragraph, which would have been the ultimate ace up his sleeve. In fact, the Josephus paragraph about Jesus does not appear until the beginning of the 4th century, at the time of Constantine, Bishop, oh Lord, big word, Eusebius, a close ally of Emperor Constantine. was instrumental in crystallizing and defining the version of Christianity which was to become orthodox. And he is the first person known to have quoted this paragraph of Josephus. Eusebius, oh Lord, I love butchering names, said that it was permissible for Christians to tell lies if it furthered the kingdom of God. Great. The fact that the Josephus Jesus paragraph shows up at this time of history, at a time when interpolations and revisions were quite common, makes the passage quite dubious. Many scholars believe that Eusebius was the forger. The passage is out of context. In Book 18, which contains the paragraph about Jesus, Josephus starts with the Roman taxation under Cyrenius in 6 AD. Talks about various Jewish sects at the time, including the Essenes. God, I'm sorry. I wish I could pronounce words. And a sect of Judas the Galilean. He discusses Herod's building of various cities, the succession of priests and procurators, and so on. Chapter 3 starts with a sedition against Pilate, who planned to slaughter all the Jews, but changed his mind. Pilate then used sacred money to supply water to Jerusalem, and the Jews protested. Pilate sent spies into the Jewish ranks with concealed weapons, and there was a great massacre. Then comes the paragraph about Jesus, and immediately after it, Josephus continues, and about the same time another terrible misfortune confounded the Jews. Josephus and Orthodox Jews would not have thought the Christian story to be another terrible misfortune, right? Because he was a Jew. It is only a Christian, someone like Eusebius, who would have considered this to be a Jewish tragedy. Paragraph 3 can be lifted out of the text with no damage to the chapter. It flows better without it. Josephus would not have called Jesus the Christ or the truth. Whoever wrote these phrases was a Christian. Josephus was a messianic Jew and never converted to Christianity. Origen reported that Josephus was not believing in Jesus as the Christ. The phrase, "to this day," shows that this is a later interpolation. There was no tribe of Christians during Josephus' time. Christianity did not get off the ground until the 2nd century. Josephus appears not to know anything else about Jesus outside of this tiny paragraph and a reference to James, the brother of Jesus. See below. He is silent about the miracles of Jesus, although he reports the antics of other prophets in great detail. He adds nothing to the gospel narratives and says nothing that would not have been known by Christians already, whether in the 1st or 4th century. In all of Josephus's voluminous works, there is not a single reference to Christianity anywhere outside of this tiny paragraph. He relates much more about John the Baptist than about Jesus. He lists the activities of many other self-proclaimed messiahs, including Judas of Galilee, Theudas the magician, and the Egyptian Jew Messiah, but is mute about the life of one whom he claims is the answer to his messianic hopes. Okay, you know what? If you can't laugh at yourself, what's the point of living? Okay, going on. The paragraph mentions that the life of Jesus was foretold by, and I'm sorry, Dan Barker, for butchering your writing, The paragraph mentions that the life of Jesus was foretold by the divine prophets, but Josephus neglects to mention who those prophets were or what they said. In no other place does Josephus connect any Hebrew prediction with the life of Jesus. If Jesus truly had been the fulfillment of divine prophecy, Josephus would have been the one learned enough to confirm it. The hyperbolic language is uncharacteristic of a careful historian. As the divine prophets had foretold these and 10,000 other wonderful things concerning him, this sounds more like the stuff of sectarian propaganda. Christians, I'm thinking of phony Beatle maniacs right now, should be careful when they refer to Josephus as historical confirmation for Jesus. It turns around and bites them. If we remove the forged paragraph, the works of Josephus become evidence against historicity. If the life of Jesus was historical, why did Josephus know nothing of it? There is one other passage in the Antiquities that mentions Jesus. It is in book, I don't know Roman characters anymore, XX chapter 9. Theudas was now dead, and Albinus was put upon the road. So he assembled the whole Sanhedrin of judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ, whose name was James, and some others, or some of his companions. And when he had formed an accusation against them as breakers of the law, he delivered them to be stoned. This is Winston's translation. This is flimsy, and even Christian scholars widely consider this to be a doctored text. The stoning of James is not mentioned in Acts. Holy Hegesippus, a Jewish Christian in 170 AD, wrote a history of the church, saying that James, the brother of Jesus, was killed in a riot, not by sentence of a court, and Clement confirms this, quoted by Eusebius. Most scholars agree that Josephus is referring to another James here, possibly the same one that Paul mentions in Acts, who led a sect in Jerusalem. Instead of strengthening Christianity, this brother of James interpolation contradicts history. Again, if Josephus truly thought Jesus was the Christ, he would have added more about him than a casual aside in someone else's story. So it turns out that Josephus is silent about Jesus. If Jesus had truly lived and had accomplished all the deeds and miracles reported in the Gospels, Josephus should have noticed. Josephus was a native of Judea, a contemporary of the apostles. He was governor of Galilee for a time, the province in which Jesus allegedly lived and taught. He traversed every part of this province, writes Remsburg, and visited the places where but a generation before Christ had performed his prodigies. He resided in Cana, the very city in which Christ is said to have wrought his first miracle. He mentions every noted personage of Palestine and describes every important event which occurred there during the first 75 years of the Christian era. But Christ was of too little consequence, and his deeds too trivial to merit a line from this historian's pen. So, that's a little bit about Josephus in Losing Faith in Faith by Dan Barker, completely and utterly butchered by yours truly, who can't pronounce words that, I'm sorry, I sound them out. You know, it's just, they never really had a class like that, and they should have had a class like that. I really think they should. How to pronounce unfamiliar words or names. It would have been a good thing. And I'm sorry, but it would be a good idea to go to dictionary.com and find out how to pronounce words before you read paragraphs from somebody else's book, but it's 4:14 in the morning and I need to get moving because I have to feed all my animals and go to work, and I don't have time. Anyway, Tacitus, I always have trouble with that name, is also somebody that is cited, and I will try to find something that I can read about why he is not really considered a good, well, he's not considered as a proof of the historicity of Jesus either. There really is no proof of the can I say it twice in a row? Historicity of Jesus. There really isn't. There is no proof. And so for people to say, oh, it's really stupid for you to say that you don't think that Jesus ever existed at all, I don't think it's stupid. I think there are atheists that believe that. I'm one of them. I don't think that a Jesus ever existed. I think he was invented by the church. The earliest Christians did not believe in a historical Jesus. And this Josephus guy, who was apparently the most prolific writer, historian at the time, the two little bits that he mentions in his works are both considered to be forgeries by the church, who is so desperate to produce evidence for their made-up Jesus that they had to forge other people's writings to do it. So, I'm sorry, Christians, but gotta come up, if you're going to produce evidence, you have to come up with something else besides Tacitus and Josephus. Those are not evidence. Those are hearsay and very suspect. So, anyway, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead before I encounter another big word that I can't say. If you've been watching, though, thank you. Bye.